So Jimbo Fisher is no longer the head coach at Texas A&M. So here's the million-dollar question, probably actually the multi-million-dollar question. Who will Texas A&M go after next? Andy Staples is as dialed in as it gets to the coaching carousel, so make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you don't miss his show and all the intel he has coming from that. Also, make sure you follow him on the socials. Make sure you're dialed in here for all things college football every single day of the year. Here's our thoughts on this whole thing. Just kind of from the outside looking in, based on the names that are floating around in this coaching search, where do we think Texas A&M should go next? So Pete Thamel put out a tweet, and he said, knowing money is no object, here are the names. Here are a few names, rather, floating around when it comes to the Texas A&M job. He said Lane Kiffin. He's got Mike Elco. He's got Dan Lanning, Jeff Traylor, Chris Kleiman, Cliff Kingsbury, and Kalen DeBoer. So in a perfect world, if you could just pluck any coach out of where they are, and we're going to go ahead and not include Nick Saban and Kirby Smart in that conversation, I think Dan Lanning and Mike Norvell would have to be at the top of that list, right? I mean, Dan Lanning, culture builder, program builder, has been able to put together a really tough brand of football in a place that isn't historically known for having a tough brand of football in Eugene, and they're playing that way right now. That is their identity right now, and he's created a lot of buy-in, a lot of belief. And Mike Norvell kind of done the same thing at Florida State with how he's utilized the portal and provided a ton of talent on that roster and got Florida State back to where they expect to be. Here's my thing. Both those individuals have pushed their current positions and their current rosters and teams into a spot where now they can really reap the benefits of how they've pushed it to those spots. And Dan Lanning at Oregon kind of had some success on that roster that was left over, but he still went out and got Bo Nix, and there was still a lot he did there. But the bottom line is they're winning right now, and I don't know if either of those individuals would try and be happier than happy. Like, I think Dan Lanning's happy at Oregon. I think Mike Norvell's happy at Florida State. This is from the outside looking in. That's how I feel about it. And I think both of those places also are giving those guys everything they need to succeed. Like, if I'm Dan Lanning or I'm Mike Norvell, I don't think I need much more than what I'm being given at Florida State and Oregon to go and accomplish the ultimate goal of winning the conference and winning a national championship. That's how I feel about both of those guys and where they are right now. Now, Lane Kiffin's a name that is going to get thrown in a lot of coaching carousel conversations. Little alliteration there, a little bit of bars for you. I would be surprised if A&M went with Lane Kiffin, just for the sheer fact of, I think Lane Kiffin is relatively happy at Ole Miss, based, again, on the outside looking in. But I would be surprised at the fit there, because it would feel like if you hire Lane Kiffin in the most roundabout way, you're kind of taking that same ride you just took with Jimbo Fisher with Lane Kiffin. And I'm not comparing Jimbo Fisher and Lane Kiffin as being the same coach, but I mean for A&M, the route you would be choosing at that point is you're going with another high-profile name, another hype train. You're putting some coal into that train and getting it on the tracks again. And hype and expectations, it's not bad, but I don't think it's really the solution and the fit for what A&M needs at this point in time. A couple of names that I settled in on that I think are very, very intriguing and that I think A&M fans should be fired up about if they land either of these guys are Chris Kleiman and Mike Elco. Now, I'll talk about Chris Kleiman first. Luke 16:10, and the Bible says, "He who is faithful with little will also be faithful with much." That is both of these individuals to a T. Chris Kleiman, he's winning FCS titles when he's at North Dakota State. He's winning at Kansas State right now with 3 stars. And that's not to talk down on the way that Kansas State recruits. I think it just speaks volumes to what they have at Kansas State and making more happen with less. And again, that's not down on Kansas State. It's a testament to Chris Kleiman. So you're telling me if I'm Chris Kleiman, and I've got that kind of roster at Kansas State and I'm winning with it, and then you go ahead and take my philosophy and take my culture and you go ahead and add that structure to A&M, which is a phenomenal roster, what can we do then? Because it feels like then you take structure, culture, put it into what A&M needs, which is structure and culture, and pair it with talent, and I think you're cooking with gas at that point in time. Mike Elco, I think, is the exact same thing. He is winning at a place that's not necessarily known to be a football school. He has created a tough culture, he's created a tough identity at Duke. Also, he's winning with a roster and recruiting at a place where it is difficult to recruit. Like there's academic standards at Duke that make it difficult to necessarily take the most talented kid every single time. There's another hoop you have to jump through, is what I'm trying to say when it comes to Duke. And we all understand just that world that Duke is living in when it comes to recruiting. And so the way that he's winning right now at Duke, I don't think you can overlook that. Same thing with Chris Klieman. The level of player they're getting and the level at which they're winning speaks volumes to what they could do if they were to get a higher level of roster. Here's why I like Mike Elco the most for the A&M job. Mike Elco is my pick to be the next head coach at Texas A&M purely because of what I said a second ago. Culture, he brings that toughness, he brings that structure, he brings that, and you pair that with the talent that A&M has, and I think you get good results. Why he differentiates himself from anyone else in this coaching search, in my humble opinion, is because he knows what he's signing up for if you make him the next head coach at A&M. Like A&M, I was a reporter there for like all of 15 minutes in Bryan College Station, and that town and that community rallies around A&M. It is a different beast in Bryan College Station to be a part of the Texas A&M football program than a lot of other places. It takes a certain level of understanding and a certain level of buy-in back into Texas A&M to be able to be successful there, in my humble opinion. And so for Mike Elco, having been a defensive coordinator there wouldn't be this calibration process of getting up to speed with A&M. I think both parties would meet in a really harmonious spot, and I think they would be able to be successful relatively quickly. And that's the thing with A&M now. I don't think you have to do this whole revamp, wait around. Like I said it on our reaction video yesterday, this gives me LSU Brian Kelly vibes. There's a lot in place right now at A&M to win. You don't have to do the 2 years to get our portal guys, let's recruit, put in our standards. Like, yes, you have to put in your standards and install your culture, but the thing that would hold you back from winning immediately is talent. A&M doesn't have that. That's not something Mike Elco would have to endure. So that's my pick. I think Chris Klieman also should be considered if they're able to have a conversation with him. But I'll tell you what, they are able to swing big based on resources, based on being in the SEC, based on access to recruits. I'm excited to see what happens. So again, make sure you're dialed in here. Again, Andy Staples will have a ton of intel on his show, on this channel. Don't miss it. Make sure you're subscribed. Let me know on Twitter and Instagram at JD Pickell who you want to be the next head coach for Texas A&M. Hey, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We'll see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.